lines 1 and 3, they appear to be parallel. And when I look at line 1 and 2, they look perpendicular, and line 3 and 2 look perpendicular. We need to figure out a way to tell for sure. Well, parallel lines are lines that lie in the same plane but never intersect, and they have identical slopes. Okay, now symbol for parallel is basically two parallel lines. Perpendicular lines intersect at 90 degrees, and they have slopes that are negative reciprocals of each other. Well, perpendicular symbol is this. So this symbol means parallel, this symbol means perpendicular. So what does it mean? Well, if I say m is 2, parallel m is going to be 2. But perpendicular m is going to be the negative reciprocal. So if 2 is negative, perpendicular would be positive. If 2 is positive, perpendicular will be negative, and flipped. So negative reciprocals is opposite sign and flipped. So another example, if I say my slope is 2/3. Well, how about negative 2/3? My slope is negative 2/3. My parallel slope would also be negative 2/3. And my perpendicular slope would be positive 3/2. So let's go back to our lines 1, 2, and 3 to tell if they're parallel or perpendicular or not. I want to compare the slopes. Now, if you recall, slope is rise over run. So the slope of line 1, I would go down 1, so it gives me negative 1, and over 2. So that's negative 1/2. And then the slope of line 3, I would go down 1 and over 2. So the slope of line 3 is also negative 1/2. These are the same, so 1 is parallel to 3. Now to see if they're perpendicular to 2 or not, I need to find the slope of line 2. And to find the slope of line 2, I would go up 1, 2, and over 1. So up 2, over 1. So the slope of line 2 is 2 over 1, or just 2. I have negative 1/2 and 2. We already said that these two things are perpendicular to each other. So 1 is perpendicular to 2, and 3 is also perpendicular to 2. So that's how we can tell that yes, they are parallel, or yes, they are perpendicular as we compare their slopes. So we have a line, it has a slope of negative 5, it's going down like this pretty steeply. The parallel line would have a slope of negative 5. And the perpendicular line would be the opposite and flipped, or the negative reciprocal, so it would be positive 1/5. If we want to find a slope of a line parallel to this line, the first thing we need to do is put our line into y equals mx plus v form so that we can identify the slope. And then if it's parallel slope we want is the same. And if we are asked to find perpendicular slope, is the negative reciprocal, or opposite and upside down. So the first thing I want to do is I want to put this into y equals mx plus b format. So I'm going to take this x and I'm going to move it and change the sign. So instead of 2x plus 3y equals 12, I'm going to have 3y equals negative 2x plus 12. Then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to divide everything by 3. So that's step 1, that's step 2. I guess I should call these A and B because they're actually part of step 1. Once I've done that, I have my y. Those don't divide, so I leave them. Plus 4. And so my slope is negative 2/3. And my parallel slope will also be negative 2/3. When we talk about a slope of 0, right, y equals negative 4 is a flat line at the point negative 4 on the y-axis. Perpendicular is a line that's going to go straight up and down. So the slope that is perpendicular to 0 is undefined. So 0 and undefined are perpendicular to each other. Now, most often when you write an equation of a line, you're going to write it in slope-intercept form. So that's y equals mx plus b. That's the most common form for writing the equation of a line, aside from standard form. You have to have two pieces of information to write this. You have to have the slope and a point. This is required information. And the reason this is required information is because there is only one line. If I put a point off in space somewhere, there's only one line with a specific, I mean, go through that point, with a specific slope that'll go through that point. There's no other line with that slope will go through that point. If I just have a point and no slope, well, there's a gazillion different lines that could go around in all different directions through a point, right? I could draw a line this way or that way, or, you know, I mean, I could just, so which line am I talking about? If I don't know slope, I don't know which line I'm talking about. If I'm just given some slope, I know that my line maybe goes this direction, but where is it? Is it here? Is it over here? Is it over here? I have to have a point and a slope to tell me exactly where the line is and exactly which line is going through the point. Does that make sense? Now, the first kind we have a line, we have a picture, and we want to tell me what is the equation of this line. Now, if I have a picture, there's two ways I can find the slope. So first step is find the slope. Okay. Now I can either take the two coordinates and plug them into the equation, the slope equation. So I can use my slope equation. Or I can count and find rise over run. Since I have a picture, I usually just like to look at the picture and just do the counting. So rise is up and down, and run is right and left. So I want to go from this point to this point. I always want to go from my leftmost point to my rightmost point. So I'm going to count. Actually, I don't even need to go from this point to this point. If I look, I have a point here, and points occur when you have perfect crisscrossing on your coordinates. So here's another point. Here's another point. I don't have to use these points that are really far away. I can use any 2 points on the line. The closer your points are, like if I went from this point to this point, I would have to reduce. If I go from this point to this point, I'm not reducing at all. So I don't have to reduce my fraction. So to move from this point to the next closest point, I'm actually going to go down 2 and over 1. So my slope is negative 2 over 1, which is just negative 2. Okay. The next thing I need to do is I need to find b, which is, because we have y equals mx plus b. I need to find b, which is my y-intercept. Now, I could use the formula, which we will go over, or find on the graph. Okay, my y-intercept occurs where my line intersects with the y-axis. That's right here. This is going to be b. So if I go, this is 1, 2, 3, so b equals 3. And then my third step is to plug in m and b. Y equals m x plus b. Here's another example. We're going to take our slope, and to get from here, we just find any 2 points. So here's a point, here's a point, here's a point, right? So points occur where you have perfect crosses. And to get from this point to this point, I go down 1 and over 3. So down 1 and then 1, 2, 3. So my slope is going to be negative 1 over 3. And it's like city blocks, right? I can't cut through the buildings. I have to go on the streets. So that's what I'm doing. I'm going down 1 street and over 3 streets to get from here to here. And then my intercept occurs right here because it's where I cross the y-axis. So this is B. If I could draw B, it would be really lovely. Oh no, don't do that. That was way too big. Right, so that's 1, 2. So B equals 2. So my equation is y equals negative 1/3 x plus 2. So this is M, this is B. So we had the kind where you have a picture. The next kind is where they give you information. They give you a slope and a point. So we have a slope and we have a point. So let's break things down for a second. Our formula is y equals mx plus b. If I have a slope of negative 3 and I have some point of 2, negative 4, I have m, I have x, I have y. I have 3 pieces of the information in this 4-piece equation, right? I have y, m, and x. What I don't have is b. So I'm going to use x, y, and m to find b. Okay. So I'm going to take my y and replace it with its value, negative 4. I'm going to take m, which is negative 3, and I'm going to take x, which is 2. So I plug those in. So that's my first step, is plug in x, y, and m. Or I guess y, m, and x would be the correct order, but then I get negative 4 is equal to negative 6 plus b. So I multiply m and x. Then I'm going to add 6 to both sides. So that would be add or subtract whatever I got there. And negative 4 plus 6 is 2. So I found B. Then my last step is to plug in M and B for the equation. So once I've got B, my equation of the line is y equals negative 3x plus 2. So I plug in M and I plug in B. So again, we have another example. This is x, this is y, this is m. So I've got y equals mx plus b, so y is 2, m is 1/2, x is negative 4, I don't know b. Okay, now if I multiply a fraction times a whole number, I'm going to do that over here. Actually, not in red, in blue. I'll do it in blue. If your denominator will divide into the whole number, you do that first. 2 goes into negative 4, negative 2 times. So I divided. 2 into negative 4 is negative 2. And then the next step is to multiply 1 times negative 2. So this would equal negative 2. Now sometimes it won't divide. So just as another example, if I have 1/2 of 5, 2 does not go into 5. So when that happens, I just multiply.
How did you get rid of the 1/2?
I went 2 into 4.
Oh, okay.
So 2 went into 4 twice, and then I did 1 times negative 2 gave me 2, or negative 2. So if I can, I divide by the denominator first and then multiply. If I can't, I just multiply and then the denominator stays the same. So here 2 didn't go into 5, so I did 1 times 5 and that gave me 5/2. If I did say 3/4 times 5, I would do 3 times 5, which would give me 15/4. Or if I did 3/2 of 8. 2 does go into 8, so do 2 goes into 8 4 times. 3 times 4 is 12.
So it would end up being 12.
So that's how I got this negative 2. So I did 2 goes into negative 4, negative 2 times, and then 1 times that gives me the same answer. And I add 2 to both sides to cancel that negative 2 out. And I get B is 4. So then I'm going to plug in my M and my B. So this is the equation of the line that goes through this point with this slope. Not to find the line that goes through a point, but a line that is parallel or perpendicular to a line. So what we want to do is first identify, okay, I want to find a perpendicular line perpendicular to this line through this point. So I need to first find M. So my first step is going to be to find my slope. So I need to take this and I need to rearrange it. It's plus. So I'm going to take this 2x and I'm going to move it over and change the signs. So I get 3y equals negative 2x minus 6. And I divide everything by 3. and I get y is equal to negative 2/3 x minus 2. Okay, here's my slope. That's m, but I want perpendicular m. So perpendicular m is going to be the opposite and upside down. So if the line they gave me, the slope was negative 2/3, perpendicular line is going to have a slope of 3/2. Okay, so number 2 would be to find parallel or perpendicular m. Well, in this case, we needed to find perpendicular. Step 3 would be to plug in x, y, and m and find b. Okay, so now I'm going to come back over here, and I've got my y equals mx plus b. Here's my x and my y, and here's my m. So y is negative 3, m is 3/2, x is 6 plus b. 2 goes into 6 3 times, and then 3 times 3 is 9. I subtract 9 from both sides, and b becomes negative 12. And then my last step is to plug in m and b for equation.
Can you just read what I said on the right side? I can't read what it says on the right side.
Here? Which part?
Negative 3 equals 3 over,
2? 3 over 2?
and then you cross it out and you block it.
2 went into 6 3 times,
Okay.
and then I did 3 times 3 to get 9. Hold on 1 second and I can enlarge it for you real quick. Let me just pause.